What's up, guys? It is Dustin here, back with another episode of Seeing Red MMA. And this weekend, we have a juicy pay-per-view for you guys. UFC 303 in Las Vegas, Nevada for International Fight Week. As we know, it was supposed to be Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor, but unfortunately, Conor McGregor pulled out with a broken pinky toe. I'll just leave it at that. But still, as our replacement, we now have the rematch of Yuri Prochazka taking on Alex Payton Pereira for the light heavyweight strap. They recently fought in November of last year, Payton getting the second round TKO to gain the belt because it was for the vacant light heavyweight belt. Payton has since knocked out Jamal Hill. In the main event of the same card, Yuri Prochazka knocked out Alexander Rakic in the second round. So both of these guys literally had the same timeline from their first fight to their most recent fight to now their second fight. So they have the same amount of time for preparation for this rematch. I am super excited. Not only that, we have a killer co-main event, Brian Ortega taking on the Surging Diego Lopes. Also, Ian Garry versus Michael Venom Page. But we'll get right into it. We'll start with the early prelims here, which I find very interesting that this is the very first fight of the night. You have Ricky Simón taking on Vinicius Oliveira. Now, Ricky Simón, I know he's been kind of on a skid as of lately. I believe his last fight was against Mario Batista. He did lose a decision. Vinicius Oliveira came off of one of the most disgusting flying knee knockouts I have ever seen, where he hit the dude with the leg kick, the dude wobbled, turned around, and kind of backpedaled towards the cage. And as soon as he turned around to face Oliveira, he was met with the flying knee and went completely unconscious. It was one of the most disgusting flying knees I have seen since Ben Askren versus Jorge Masvidal. But in this fight here, I really don't know much about Vinicius Oliveira, and that's what the odds reflect as well, too. Vinicius is a plus 185, while Ricky Simón is a minus 225 favorite. So, I mean, definitely the veteran of the division, Ricky Simón, who has fought all likes of competition in the division, versus the newcomer against Oliveira. It's an interesting matchup. It's literally the old guard versus the new guard here. If I'm having to use my brain on this one, but I think Ricky Simón gets it done. I think he either gets a submission. He definitely uses his grappling because he's in dire need of a win. I don't think making it look fancy is very important at the moment. I think it's time to just go in there and bite down your mouthpiece and get the win, no matter the circumstances. Whether if you do have to decision him, wrestle him, push him up against the cage, because Oliveira is a very aggressive striker. And Ricky Simón has been tagged. I know he's been known for having a good chin, but Faber dropped him. Song Yadong TKO'd him in the fifth round. So I got Ricky Simón winning this by decision. We got Ray Soria versus Carlos Hernandez. And I am going to be honest with you guys. I've seen Carlos Hernandez. I know he fought Tatsuro Taira and got TKO'd. No idea who Ray Taisura is. I think he's probably off of the road to the UFC. Yeah, I have no idea who wins that fight, and there's no odds on here as well either, so I can't even make a good prediction. Andrei Arlovsky returns to the cage, taking on Martin Buday. For some reason, Martin Buday is a minus 270 favorite over Andrei Arlovsky, when Andrei is still getting it done. I know he had his last fight with, what was his name, Acosta, something like that? Yeah, Valdez Acosta. You know who I'm talking about if you're hardcore. But Martin Buday is absolutely terrible. This fight's going to suck. It's going to go all the distance. Bet this to go the full 3 rounds. And speaking of going the 3 rounds, the feature fight on the early prelims is Michelle Waterson-Gomez taking on Jillian Robertson. Michelle Waterson-Gomez is old. She's a plus 164. Jillian Robertson minus 198. Not much to talk about there. Jillian Robertson by submission. Now this is where it gets good, guys. Payton Talbott. And if you don't know who Payton Talbott is, you need to look him up. He has some of the most fun striking I have seen in a very long time. He is very confident. He's smooth. He's got swag. I am a fan of Payton Talbott. I don't care what anybody says. He might say some cringy shit or he might look like a fuckboy. I don't care. Payton Talbott is good. His striking is fantastic. And he's taking on Giannis Gamori. I hope I pronounced that right. I do apologize if I did not, but also, have a better name. Giannis Gamori, no idea who this guy is, honestly. He's a plus 900 against Payton Talbott's minus 1,600. I know his last fight was against Gomes, and he lost in that one. So, this should be like a toss-up fight for Payton Talbott. Another interesting fight on this card. See, this card is filled with so many hidden gems. This is why I love this card. Even when it was the Conor Chandler card, honestly, it was still a very good card, and it's still a very good card. Charles Jourdain taking on John Silva. John Silva is nasty. He is confident. He's a bit of a weirdo as well, too. He's part of the Fighting Nerds, along with Caio Borralho, where they wear the glasses with the little tape right here. It's kind of their signature thing. Whatever. Do your thing. Charles Jourdain is coming off of a loss to Sean Woodson in his last performance, but that didn't deter the odds makers from saying Charles Jourdain is a minus 130. But Jean Silva only has one fight in the UFC after coming out of the Contender Series, and he absolutely beat the shit out of some poor guy, out of some poor mailman who did not know how to strike. I think Charles Jourdain gets it done. I think he grinds out a decision. I think he definitely uses his grappling in this one to avoid the heavy leather from Jean Silva, but we'll definitely see. I mean, the odds are so close in that one, I could definitely see it going either way. Another banger, Cub Swanson taking on Andre Fili. Cub Swanson definitely long in the tooth now. He's been doing this for years and years and years. Since I started watching MMA, he was in the WEC, so I've grown up with Cub Swanson. Andre Fili as well, too. I mean, I remember him, unfortunately, fighting like Yair Rodriguez, but, I mean, the guy's a dog as well, too. Both known for their striking. Andre Fili definitely is going to have the reach advantage. I would say the power advantage is probably going to go to Cub Swanson, but I think Andre Fili's been around the block enough to avoid those power strikes, and I think he probably gets a TKO maybe into the second round, late into the second. And that's kind of what the odds show here. Cub Swanson's a plus 160. Andre Fili's a minus 192. And another banger, Joe Pyfer coming back after his decision loss to Jack Hermanson, taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. Andre Barriault is coming off of a decision loss to Chris Curtis. So both these guys coming off losses, both still trying to make a name for themselves in this middleweight division. Obviously, Barriault has definitely been in the UFC for much longer. He's been there for a while, has fought a good amount of competition there. Joe Pyfer, this is his fourth? Yeah, this is his fourth fight in the UFC. And, I mean, Joe Pyfer, whether we want to believe it or not, has broken the punching record of Francis Ngannou, which I never really bought into. Thought that was always a marketing tool by the UFC to promote fighters because, I mean, I don't even know how you really measure that on a scale that's tangible. But Joe Pyfer definitely does have knockout power. We've seen it time and time again. Not his last fight withstanding, but still, he's got good hands. He's got great grappling. Barriault's not really that big of a threat on the feet. He's more of a grinder, push you up against the fence, take you down, control you, look for submissions. I got Joe Pyfer probably by finish, especially after coming off that pretty demoralizing loss to Jack Hermanson. I think he definitely needs a finish to kind of keep his name relevant. But moving on to the main card portion of this event, Ian Machado Garry is taking on Michael Venom Page. Now, this has the elements to be fight of the night, and it also has elements to be the worst fight we've ever seen. Both of these guys are counter-strikers. Michael Venom Page definitely is more of a counter-striker than Ian Garry, but Ian Garry, if he can't get inside, he definitely sets up a lot of his strikes with the jab and the leg kick. Michael Venom Page has that sideways karate stance, tries to throw spinning shit or just weird shit all the way around. We'll see how that goes. I think Michael Venom Page might get this done. I do think it might be boring, so be prepared to be bored in this fight. But also at the same time, just the explosiveness and the overall just creativity of Michael Venom Page makes this an interesting fight that I'm willing to watch. But I think he probably frustrates Ian Garry. I don't think Ian Garry gets knocked out, but I think his O goes. I think the undefeated fighter finally takes an L. Michael Venom Page moves up the rankings in only his second UFC fight. Now, this is going to be fight of the night here, guys. And now, when I say this, do not turn off your TVs. after the Ian Garry fight, because this is the fight that the fans want, that everyone wants. This is for all the marbles. Mayra Bueno Silva, hold on, versus Macy Chiasson. Need I say more, guys? After coming off of her title fight loss to Raquel Pennington, which is one of the absolute, not even worst title fights, one of the top 5, one of the worst fights I've ever seen. The only reason why it's not the worst fight I've ever seen is because Yoel Romero versus Izzy is out there, and Carla Esparza versus Rose Namajunas 2 is out there. That's the only reason why it's not the worst fight I've ever seen. But Macy Chiasson is a plus 170. Mayra Bueno Silva is a minus 250. Give me Silva by submission. I really don't give a shit about this fight. I was joking before. Here's a weird fight. So as we know, the co-main event previous, when it was Conor vs. Chandler, was Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree. Khalil Roundtree popped for PEDs. We'll see how that plays out. Then it was Jamal Hill versus Carlos Ulberg. Jamal Hill pulls out. Now it's Anthony Smith versus Carlos Ulberg. And then within 24 hours, Carlos Ulberg pulls out. So now you have middleweight Roman Dolidze going up to take on Anthony Smith in a light heavyweight bout. Anthony Smith is coming off of a victory against Vitor Petrino in a submission. And I think that was 301, the Pantoja card. I'm not buying into the resurgence of Anthony Smith. I still think he's old. Roman Dolidze is a good enough grappler to avoid simple mistakes like that. He's a seasoned vet, and I think he's got really good power. If Anthony Smith does win this, it's based off ground control, just laying in his guard and holding him there, or it's standing up and just keeping his distance, landing leg kicks and jabs. But Roman Dolidze, I think Roman gets it done. I think he probably, I don't want to say TKO because Anthony Smith's only been TKO'd like once due to punches, and that was against Khalil Roundtree. I don't think Dolidze hits as hard as Khalil Roundtree, but you never know. Either Dolidze gets a TKO or he gets a decision. Co-main event, boys and girls, Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes, and these odds are crazy. That number 3 in the featherweight division, I know the rankings don't mean a whole lot, but still, number 3 in the featherweight division is a plus 220 underdog against Diego Lopez's minus 142. I know the odds aren't that crazy in distance, but at the same time, though, the fact that a former 2-time title challenger who has fought the likes of Max Holloway and Volkanovski, and arguably had Volkanovski dead to rights until he somehow pulled off that miracle getting out of the guillotine, is an underdog against number 14. That just shows you how much proof is in the pudding with Diego Lopes. Sorry, there's a hair on my hand. Gross. But Diego Lopes, I think he is a more aggressive striker. I think he's more creative. He has that almost, I would call it a flying triangle because he kind of pulled guard while throwing up the triangle against Gavin Tucker. He's got knockout power, as we saw against Sadiq Youssef and Pat Sabatini. Went the full 3 rounds and arguably put up the best fight possible against Movsar Ivloev, even though he didn't get the win, still coming in short notice and putting up that good of a fight against him. That's got to say something in its own right. Give me Diego Lopes. I think he gets it done. I think you have your new featherweight number 1 contender after this. If Max is fighting Topuria and Diego Lopes gets past Brian Ortega with ease, you make that fight. Diego Lopes versus the winner of Max Holloway versus Topuria. It's that easy. Main event time. Here we go. Two of my favorite fighters. Yuri Prochazka, basically the light heavyweight version of Tony Ferguson. Just a fucking weirdo. I love him. He's so good. He's so fun to watch. He is just entertainment. Just pure entertainment. And Poatan, a history maker. He's Superman. Literally, you call him up on short notice to defend his belt. Not even fight for the belt, to defend his belt. He's there. 300. Hey, we don't really have a main event. You want to do it? Sure. Hey, John Jones pulled out. You want a main event against Prochazka for the vacant light heavyweight belt? Sure. Knocks out Izzy in his first title fight at middleweight. then immediately rematches. I know he didn't win the immediate rematch, but this guy is a through-and-through fighter. Literally, if anybody was like any place, anytime, it's these two guys. They are the top of their divisions right now. I know Ankalaev is out there kind of still swimming around, but honestly, if you're looking at creativity, just dynamic striking, power, athleticism, these are your two guys. Prochazka did have some good moments in the first fight. He was able to land some strikes, kind of confuse Pereira a little bit with the weird shots, especially coming from the weird angles, like launching his hands up from his hips and things like that, and then coming over the top, especially from that orthodox stance. And one thing I did notice, I rewatched that fight recently, Payton has a tendency of, in those situations, just kind of puts his hands out and leans back. Just leans back and then goes backwards. And that's how he kind of caught Prochazka, is that his back was against the cage. Right hook, or right shovel hook, is I guess what you would call it. Left hook. Cracked him, sat him down, elbows to the side of the head while he was going for the takedown. But it wasn't like a one-sided fight. I know the leg kicks do play a big part, but even then, if Yuri can find an answer to those leg kicks, especially early in the fight, Payton's got his hands full still. Honestly, I don't know who's going to win this fight. I want to lean more towards Pereira because I feel like once you knock somebody out, you do have an edge over them. But at the same time, though, Prochazka is a wild man. I don't think that necessarily does apply or will apply to a guy like Prochazka just because of how fierce and just gritty he is. He's just a fighter's fighter. He is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. He is just a fucking weirdo. I mean, what other fighter do you know on the roster locks himself in a dark room for 3 days and no food, no water, no nothing, just to test himself, just for extracurricular activities? Like, what the fuck? That's a wild man. He's crazy. And all the samurai shit, he's asking Pereira not to ask shamans for help for a ritual or something. I don't even know. The dude is crazy. And I love every second of his fights. The Rakic fight, I was going absolutely nuts during that. He took a nasty shot from Rakic and just kept coming forward. He's just all gas, no brakes, and that's your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. But overall, I mean, this card was good before when it was Chandler versus Conor, just because, I mean, anytime you have the return of Conor, a card's going to be pretty good unless he's fighting Cerrone. That card was trash. But I feel like this one may have got slightly better, especially with the addition of Ortega versus Lopez, Machado versus MVP. I know that fight was already scheduled when it was Conor versus Chandler, but overall, still, this card is absolutely fantastic. I know that it is in Vegas, so main card starts at 7 p.m. Early prelims will be starting at, 3 p.m. It's Mountain Standard Time if you're out here in that region. But I cannot wait, guys. UFC 303 is upon us. It is Wednesday right now, so we have about 3 days to go before we see the action unfold inside the cage. That is all for me today. Like I said, Payton, Prochazka, Lopez, Ortega, MVP, Garry, Payton Talbott. Payton Talbott, guys, I'm telling you, keep your eye on this fucking kid. But that's about it for me, guys. Tune in next time. I'll put up the post show after the fights are over, going over my reactions. If you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you like as well. Follow me on Twitter at SeeingRedMMA. But other than that, guys, you have yourself a great rest of your day. And until next time, see ya.